harder on others than ourselves when it comes to bad habits. They can be annoyances like someone who starts cracking their knuckles right next to you, or a friend of yours who you love very much but who constantly drops the word like into like every other sentence. Hey, but you've got one too. Everyone has at least one bad habit that they can't shake. Or can they? Welcome to Wellcast. This week, we took another viewer suggestion from Frantic Cow, who wrote in asking for a video on breaking bad habits. So today, you guessed it, we're going to examine why it's so darn difficult to give up chowing down on junk food or chowing down on your fingernails. We've also got a 4-step method for overcoming your biggest vice. Are you ready? First and foremost, how do bad habits even form? Studies by the National Institute of Health point to 2 main reasons. The first reason is repetition. If you do something often enough, say you twirl your pencil during class, your brain decides it can stop wasting precious neurons thinking about it. So it checks out and goes on vacation. You could be twirling your pencil through AP English, Social Studies, Algebra, and Trig without even thinking about it. The other way bad habits are formed is through positive reinforcement, which sounds like a really good thing, but it can be dangerous. Let's talk about that energy drink that you insist on sucking back when you're up late studying. Gives you a nice boost of energy, and it helps you get through to the end of that mind-numbingly boring paper you're writing on Chaucer. But the reason why this kind of habit is hard to break is that a nice surge of energy at 11 p.m. is an enjoyable feeling. And enjoyable feelings usually result in your brain releasing dopamine. This is partly why people often crave things that aren't even enjoyable for them anymore. The brain is jonesing for dopamine. But don't worry, my habitual compadres. Human beings are pretty amazing at changing and adapting. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to obliterate that bad habit in 4 easy steps. Pause and print this sheet at watchwellcast.com. Step 1. Let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. Write down the bad habit you're trying to quit. Start simple, choose just one. Step 2. Learn to avoid your triggers. Take some time to think about the things that really make you crave doing your bad habit. If biting your nails is your vice, your triggers might be, that last-minute quiz. Oh no, I gotta pay my electric bill, or how much money do I have in my account for rent? List these triggers in section 2 of your worksheet. Next to these triggers, write a list of ways you can avoid them. For example, read your syllabus every week, or make sure that you plan for automatic deductions for your electric bill. Step 3, substitute your bad habits for not-so-bad habits. Basically, you want to teach your brain by repetition to learn a new habit. So, if you tend to bite your nails when you're stressed and alone in your living room, stock your refrigerator with carrots and celery so that you can reach for something else to chew on when you're stressed out. Write a substitution next to every trigger on section 3 of your worksheet. Step 4, gather your army. You do not have to do this alone. Enlist your friends to help you defeat this bad habit. Start by telling them that you're planning on eliminating this bad habit, and you need their help. Just the simple act of letting them in on this battle that you're waging is a step in the right direction. Remember, your friends can be bodyguards. They'll stand between you and your brain. Tell them to police you. If they see you reaching for those nails to bite, give them the permission to remind you of your mission. Or even slap your hand. Whatever you want. All right, guys, let's recap. Today, you learned 4 steps for beating your bad habit. You decided which habit you wanted to kick. You figured out your triggers for this bad habit, and you decided on ways to avoid and replace these triggers with healthier alternatives. If all else fails, you learn to enlist your friends in the fight.
Tweet us at WatchWellcast, email us at watchwellcast@gmail.com, or leave a comment down below. We'll see you next time.
Okay, are you ready to go here on a Wednesday morning? Hope so, because we're off and running. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., ready to bring you the news of the day wherever it's happening. We are there on top of it for you. We'll tell you all about it. You tell us what you think about it here on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TawkrTV. News happening everywhere here in Washington. The big Africa summit continues. Leaders of up to 50 African nations here in the capital. A historic occasion. Never been anything like this before. President Obama entertaining them all last night at the White House with a big dinner on the South Lawn and announcing yesterday that American businesses, that's what this is all about, have agreed to invest $14 billion on the African continent to help prop up and speed up the improving economies in those African nations. Meanwhile, good news out of the Middle East. Both parties, the ceasefire continues, and both parties, Israel and the Palestinian Authority, Hamas, have sent delegations to Egypt to try to come up with a permanent end to the conflict there in Gaza. Sad news out of Afghanistan, where a 2-star American general was shot and killed yesterday as he was visiting a training center for Afghan troops. One of the Afghan soldiers opened up fire with a machine gun from a nearby building as the highest-ranking American general to be killed since a general was killed in the plane that crashed into the Pentagon on September 11. Again, wherever it's happening, we'll bring the news to you. You tell us what it means to you by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater, fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple and they add up and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that could be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. And like Archimedes said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
50 heads of state here in Washington, D.C. Washington's never seen such a collection of presidents all at one time, and we're right here in the middle of it. What do you say? Hello, everybody. It's Wednesday, August 6th. Good to see you here, middle of the week. And thank you for hopping on board the bus as we head out from Washington, D.C. to wherever you are in this great land of ours. The Bill Press Show on a Wednesday morning, bringing you up to date on all the news of the day. Bringing it to you on your local progressive talk radio station. Bringing it to you on the TuneIn app and iHeartRadio. And also, of course, on our on Free Speech TV and on our video stream worldwide at TawkrTV, TawkrTV. You can watch us anywhere. You can listen to us anywhere. And if you're right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., you could just walk by, bang on the door, we'll let you in. And just join us. We'll find room for you.
Yeah.
God, another crowd today, you mean, like we had yesterday?
Sure, bring them on in.
Bring them on in, right, yeah. And stop and get a cup of coffee at Peregrine Coffee downstairs before you come up.
That's right.
Great to see you this morning, and we welcome you to the program and welcome our team, Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy. Hello, hello.
Hey.
But by the way, I got a good nap in yesterday, recovering from the late return from Asheville.
I don't blame you.
Yes, had to do that. Alicia Cruz is here. She's standing by to take your calls. Remember, you can join the conversation anytime, even if you can't bang on the door and walk in. Give us a call at 866-55 Press. That's our toll-free number. Or send us your comments on Twitter or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. On Twitter at BP Show. And Peter Ogburn, he's the catcher here, standing by to take your comments. Cyprian Bolding's got us looking good on the video camera, videographer, keeping us up to date on Free Speech TV and on TawkrTV. Peter, you've got a couple of boys, and
yes, indeed.
You've, I'm sure, taken them out to either the rides or a state fair.
We
or
love the
something
fair.
Like that,
yes,
right?
indeed. It's coming up here. Soon. Yeah, absolutely.
Very, very exciting.
It's very exciting.
Up in Pennsylvania at the Wayne County Fair, little Noah Ritter. He's 5 years old. It's hard to tell whether he's more excited about the rides or appearing on live TV. A reporter stops and asks him how he likes the fair. Here he is.
What did you think about the ride?
It was great. And apparently, I've never been on live television before, but apparently sometimes I don't watch the news because I'm a kid, and apparently Grandpa just gives me a remote after we watch the Powerball.
Apparently.
His grandfather makes him watch the Powerball. I've never been on live TV.
Apparently, I've never been on live TV. Well, that's how I usually start my full court presses, by the way.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
But he goes on. The live TV and the rides are both very exciting.
Tell me about the ride. What did you think about the ride?
Well, it was great.
Why?
Because apparently you're spinning around, and apparently every time you get dizzy,
Yeah.
that's all you do is get dizzy.
Is it fun?
Yeah. And I've never, ever never been on live television. I never ever be on live television.
Are you excited?
Yeah, and apparently I already went down the super slide. And I went down the one I was scared half to death. I just freak out.
I just freak out.
That kid is the best.
Apparently, I've never been on live TV.
Apparently,
I only went down the super slide. I mean,
that kid is the best.
Isn't he great? Yeah.
Holy cow.
He's so cute.
Oh, yeah. Never been on live TV.
Apparently, I've never been on live TV before.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Apparently, I've never been on live radio or TV before. Sometimes it sounds like it. All right. We got a lot going on. We've got them in, packing them in this morning. Reporters from Politico, from The Hill, from the National Journal, and this hour, David Jackson from USA Today. And have you heard about the big Ebola scare? But first,
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Some new studies, new numbers out of Colorado, Bill.
Yes.
You heard some of the criticism before marijuana was made legal. You're going to have more drugged drivers out on the road. You're going to have more people out there driving under the influence of marijuana.
All the naysayers proven wrong, right?
Well, marijuana now, after it's been legal, highway fatalities in Colorado are at near historic lows.
Wow.
There are not more drugged drivers on the road, and if there are, they are not having incidents that would result in a crash or a traffic incident. That's the latest data that came out from Colorado.
Yep.
Congratulations to the San Antonio Spurs, my team.
About that, yes.
World champions.
Yep.
They hired yesterday former WNBA star Becky Hammond. She is the first female assistant coach full-time in the NBA. This is a barrier that's been sort of up. It's always men that serve as assistant coach or coaches. There is still no female head coach in the NBA, but, you know, this certainly opens the door to that. There's no reason
absolutely
why
historic. The question is, will she be allowed in the locker room?
Yeah.
That's a very good question. I don't know why she wouldn't be. I mean, she's
would
the coach.
Would she be comfortable in the locker room?
It's that I think that would just have to be something that she would have to explore. But I mean,
well, I would hope that they'd have some consideration.
Sure.
Meaning,
you
know, maybe.
I'm sure that was something that they ironed out.
Not necessarily parading around the way they normally do.
Right.
Letting it all hang out, so to speak. Right.
So to speak.
Yes.
I mean, these days with reporters, both female and male, it's a pretty, there's sort of an area for that, and then an area that they're more covered up. And Conmast has their list of the friendliest cities in the United States. Bill, do you want to take a guess?
Yeah, Delaware City, Delaware is number one.
Sorry, Bill.
Lewinsky's on Clinton.
Delaware City, Delaware not on the list.
No.
Of the friendliest city. The friendliest city in the country, again, is
Charleston, South Carolina.
Charleston, South Carolina. Yes,
I got it.
It's the second year in a row. A couple of other.
Not Beaufort?
I'm sorry, not Beaufort. Not Beaufort. Second on the list, Savannah, Georgia. Not far.
Not far.
Charleston.
And Beaufort's in between the two.
That's it. But also on the list, just so you know, you'll recognize this.
Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, really?
You got it. New Orleans.
Two of my favorites.
Also on the list.
Yes, three of my favorite cities. Absolutely.
You're a friendly person.
I go to friendly places. Seriously. Charleston, Asheville, and New Orleans.
New Orleans.
I can't think of three. But add San Francisco to the list.
Yeah.
And you got me hooked
San Francisco not on the list.
Not on the list. New York not on the list. No. Okay. Brooklyn could be on the list. Brooklyn's a real friendly place. I love Brooklyn too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't put together and not to knock New York. This is the reason why New York is great.
Right.
I don't think of them as stopping and saying, "Hey, how you doing?" when you're walking down the street.
No.
They're normally on the other list.
Yeah, exactly.
The not friendly city.
I mean,
list.
if you count a middle finger as friendly, then
maybe New York.
New York.
I remember the first time I got off a plane in Charleston, and I walked up to some little restaurant in a fast food place in the airport. And the woman just walked up and said, "How can I help you, sweetie?"
Yeah.
Whoa. We've hardly met. Let's not get intimate so fast. Yeah.
And Charleston's my hometown. You can tell. I'm one of the friendlier people you've ever met.
Yeah, you left. You were probably thrown out.
I was holding them down.
You were thrown out, probably. All right. Hey, yes, indeed, wanted to start where we started yesterday, too, because this is just driving me crazy. Hadas from Politico is going to be here a little bit later in the program to talk about it, too. But the latest on the latest update on the Ebola virus scare. Now, look, this is a very serious matter. In Western Africa, there are some 900 people plus dead already from this virus. There's never been an outbreak like this before, so it is serious and it's worth taking seriously. But that doesn't mean that Americans have to be afraid, or that Americans have to be panicking, as the media has been suggesting, or the media has to be playing this wall-to-wall 24/7 like they tend to do whenever there's whenever there's no other news to talk about, right? So the latest update about 900 dead in Western Africa. The second American who's been infected with the virus in Western Africa was brought home to the United States yesterday. A nurse. She is in improving condition. The doctor, the first man who's infected, a doctor from that same missionary hospital in, I forget which is Sierra Leone or one of the countries that's impacted at any rate, is already here. He's in isolation down in Atlanta. Now she is too. And the word from New York, Mount Sinai Hospital, is nothing new on this patient up there. The doctor, David Reich, yesterday told reporters again that they're monitoring very closely and working closely with the CDC.
We're going to work carefully with the CDC to make certain that this patient does not have the Ebola virus disease.
And meanwhile, at the White House yesterday, this dominated a good part of our briefing, at any rate, with Press Secretary Josh Earnest, who talked about the fact, first, that the United States has been on top of this since word of the outbreak first came, which was last March, actually.
It has been something that this administration, through the CDC, has been focused on for several months now. The initial reports of an Ebola outbreak occurred back in March.
But most importantly, and this is what I was waiting to hear yesterday, that Josh Earnest, speaking for the White House, speaking for the president, made it very, very clear that all these reports of panic, all these attempts by the media to scare people are really not accurate, not necessary, and are sending the wrong message, the right message. Josh Earnest made it very, very clear for Americans. This is what Americans have to know.
The experts at the CDC have assessed that there is no significant risk posed to Americans here in this country by this latest outbreak of Ebola.
No significant risk posed to Americans. But again, Peter, you and I were talking about, you would never know this. You would never know that by watching the media yesterday or even this morning. They're still at it. And yesterday afternoon, when the plane carrying this nurse home from Western Africa arrived in Atlanta, oh my God. I mean, CNN, I think all the cables.
I was sitting in here, and as we've talked about, we've got the three TVs, right? We've got CNN, Fox, and MSNBC. At a certain point in the day yesterday, all of them switched.
Right. And it was the ambulance chase. They were following, with the helicopters, following the ambulance, carrying her from the airport to the hospital, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was like the old O.J. car chase,
totally.
Right? Yeah, the white
totally
Bronco,
was.
right? I mean, just that whole thing, just obsessed with this and making a big deal, as if, right, she was bringing the Ebola virus here to the United States. The other thing that Josh pointed out yesterday, and I've heard other people say too, is with the Ebola virus, you have to, like there are two ways of getting it. You can be bitten by this tsetse fly that is not found in the United States, only found in Western Africa, number one. And number two, you'd have to actually have physical contact. You can't get it through the air by just being in the same room with somebody. You have to have physical contact with somebody who has the disease or the symptoms of the disease. So the threat really does not exist here in the United States. Again, you would never know that from watching the media. But I think it's important. Wanted to get that word out this morning. From the CDC through the White House, no significant risk, no matter what you see on cable television.
And we already saw this morning, they were talking again about Ebola. And I love how they're very helpfully showing the microscopic images of what Ebola looks like. As if that's going to do anybody any bit of good.
When you're walking around.
Look out for this microscopic worm-looking thing.
Right. At the same time, it was a little, I was surprised to learn that, Ebola virus has been around, right? This is not like the first time ever. And yet, even today, there are no vaccines available today. Here's a spokesperson for the Council for Foreign Relations pointing out how far were the Ebola virus ever to impact another part of the world, or here, how far we are from having something to deal with it.
Though some might enter such safety trials in the calendar year 2014, none would be available for widespread use and commercial production for several years.
No vaccine available for several years. Wow.
That's terrifying.
And, but I think it's because it is never been a threat here in the United States and is not today that it's not had a higher priority in the United States. So the pharmaceutical companies have not spent a lot of time researching this or developing a vaccine because there was no market for it.
No.
And unless there's an immediate market, they probably didn't get there. At any rate, rest assured, no significant risk from Ebola, no matter what you see on cable television. Why is the media hyping this up? Do you feel comfortable and confident that this is not a threat to you or to your family? 866-55-PRESS. We'll talk about it here Wednesday morning on The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee, build trust internally, and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all of the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go with 27 minutes after the hour, assessing the reality behind the media hype. It's really what it is. Total summer hype over the Ebola virus scare and with the second American patients. Peter and I were just talking during the break. When you look up at the monitors, TV monitors, and you see the extent of the disease here in the United States, both patients flown here from West Africa, and you see them both side by side on the screen, and that's the entire extent of people with Ebola virus in the United States, both of them in isolation. You can kind of rest assured. You may remember Davis from Radford, Virginia. He's back. This is a patient man.
He's been on hold since yesterday morning.
He's been on hold for 24 hours. Hey, Davis, how are you?
Great, and I have no problem staying on hold. It's just flipping the phone. But,
go ahead.
Hey, Bill, this is typical right-wing fear-mongering.
Yes.
Go ahead. When they try to tie it to children, refugee children, that's pandering to their racist attitudes. And when they're getting into this fear so much, they're fear freaks. I mean, they're feeling. They're not thinking, and that's what they're after.
Yeah, you're right, and I'm glad you reminded us that two Republican members of Congress, as we mentioned yesterday, have actually tried to tie the Ebola virus to children coming across the southern border, bringing it from Central America.
This
oh my
is
God.
The Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At 34 minutes after the hour on a Wednesday morning, David Jackson covers the White House for USA Today. He will be joining us in the next segment. We're talking about the media scare, attempts in the media to really scare the public on the Ebola virus. The White House doing a good job, I think, of putting that in perspective yesterday. As we move along, just an update on some of the other big stories in the news today. Some good news out of the Middle East. A stand down on the part of both parties in the war in Gaza. The Hamas and Israel have both not only observed the 72-hour ceasefire, but agreed to extend that ceasefire. And both sides have sent delegations to Egypt to hopefully work out and hammer out a long-standing ceasefire in that area. Josh Earnest yesterday, White House press secretary, welcoming this latest development.
The United States certainly supports the latest 72-hour ceasefire proposal that appears both sides are respecting and abiding by at this point.
You know, I think what really was a telling event was the shelling by Israel of the UN school where big crowd of people had sought sanctuary, figuring that this U.S. school would be safe territory. And a shell hit there, 10 children killed. I think everybody sort of said, okay, enough is enough is enough. And the last I heard, actually, Israeli troops had been withdrawn from Gaza.
The fact that
they destroyed maybe most of the tunnels, all they could find at any rate. So mission accomplished.
The fact that it's been 2 days,
right,
of a ceasefire that's actually held up, that's optimistic. I think we could be cautiously optimistic about this.
Just a little side note. I noticed a friend of mine who's a CNN cameraman was not at the White House yesterday at the briefing, and he travels occasionally internationally with John Kerry or with the president. So I shot him a text and I said, "Hey, I'm here at the White House. Where are you? Why aren't you at your camera, the post?" And I immediately got a text back, and he said, "Gaza." And I texted him back, "BS," because I figured he was just pulling my leg. And he immediately texted me back a photograph from Gaza. So I had to say, all right, I believe you, dude. I believe you, dude. But please be careful, man. So good news on that front. Some very tragic news out of Afghanistan, where yesterday a group of American military officials visiting a training base where we are training Afghan forces to really be able to take over and to secure and to protect the citizens of that country when we leave by the end of this summer, remember? And they were gathered in a big field area when an Afghan soldier firing from a nearby building opened up fire with a machine gun. I saw on the third floor of this building, sprayed this parade ground and wounded, I think, some 10 American soldiers and killed a two-star American general, Major General Harold Green, who was one of those leading the efforts to train Afghan soldiers. It is the highest, very, very sad, killed that way. And but what does it say about our trust in the Afghan military? I mean, okay, it's maybe just one incident, but it's not the first example of so-called friendly fire in Afghanistan. And it doesn't speak well for what happens after all of our troops get out of there.
Yeah, I mean, we've been there forever.
Highest-ranking American military official to be killed since 9/11, when a three-star general was killed on the plane that went into the Pentagon.
That puts it into perspective.
Yeah, and the highest-ranking officer ever to be killed in Afghanistan or Iraq.
Good grief.
Yeah. Yesterday, so a little, very, very, very troubling. And finally, on the world front, it's happening right here in Washington, D.C., a really historic occasion where up to, nobody's really sure of the number at any one day, but it's up to 50, they keep saying, leaders of African nations, prime ministers and presidents who are here for this African summit And the real purpose is to introduce these African nations to the American business community. So you've got the African leaders and the leaders of the American business community here in Washington, D.C., looking for investment opportunities in that on the African continent. Last night, the president welcomed the leaders, the entire group, at a big dinner on the south lawn of the White House. He spoke yesterday about how the United States wants to partner with the African nations.
As president, I made it clear that the United States is determined to be a partner in Africa's success, a good partner, an equal partner, and a partner for the long term.
And at the dinner last night, he raised a toast to the prime ministers and presidents who were there.
I propose a toast to the new Africa, the Africa that is rising and so full of promise, and to our shared task to keep on working for the peace and prosperity and justice that all our people seek and that all our people so richly deserve.
And it was not lost on that crowd there at the dinner last night, which the president himself observed that he stands as the host of the first African summit, in a unique position as an American president.
I stand before you as the President of the United States and a proud American. I also stand before you as the son of a man from Africa.
Well, think about that. Mm-hmm. American president of the United States, first African-American president, and a son of a man from Africa. So real roots in Africa. Not born there, but real roots.
Just to be clear.
Right.
You know, a couple of years ago, I saw Bob Geldof, a musician who's done a lot of work in Africa, and a ton of work in Africa, and talked about the beauty and the resources that are there in Africa, that it just needs some push and some organization for it to just be a great place for industry and all kinds of things. And, you know, we gave George W. Bush a lot of grief for a lot of things, but he did a lot of great work with Africa.
Yeah, he did. And so did Bill Clinton, by the way.
You're right. You're right.
And, you know, it is true. And I think, I mean, they call it the dark continent, right? It's dark in the sense that it's unknown.
Yeah.
So much of Africa is unknown. I mean, I admit, I could not look at a map of the continent and name the countries in it.
Yeah, no.
I could name a few of them.
Sure.
But, okay, Egypt, Morocco, and South Africa.
Right.
But you get me in the middle of that continent, and I am lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's true for most Americans.
I think that's fair. I think that's a fair.
You know, we've heard through our briefings at the White House that these are some of the fastest growing economies on the planet right now, which is why this summit is so important, because with all these investment opportunities for American businesses, they have to know what's available there. And we know that China, the Chinese business leaders and Chinese government are there investing. And so it's sort of a race now to see, who's going to be first there with the attention that Africa deserves and with the help that they need to build those economies. That's the news here from Washington, D.C. David Jackson at the White House, standing by to join us when we come back. David Jackson covers the White House for USA Today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Racing done. I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, at 13 minutes before the top of the hour, Wednesday, August 6th. It's kind of a sleepy time in Washington, D.C., with the Congress out of town, but the president has filled the vacuum by inviting all the leaders of Africa here to the White House, and with almost 50 leaders and 50 motorcades taking over this town. It's been a pretty busy place this week, as we discovered yesterday at the White House. David Jackson covering the White House for USA Today. Hello, David.
Hello, Bill. Yes, it's not sleepy if you're trying to drive around here, I can tell you that.
No, indeed. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine with the Secret Service who is assigned to the Prime Minister of Libya. He said, you know, they've got like an 8-car motorcade, right, with police escorts, and every one of them has the same.
And they're scattered all over town to the different luxury hotels.
Right. So I was wondering, how did they get all those people into the White House yesterday? That was really
a long process. It took several hours. The president didn't make his toast till shortly after 9 p.m., and I don't think they wrapped up till after 11. It was a real late dinner, and part of it was just the simple process of moving all those folks through. It was a very busy and crowded evening.
Right, through security and with all those 400
people. It was even a bigger dinner than the India State dinner, which had set records a couple of years ago.
Were there 400 really people there?
400 guests, yeah.
Wow. No. A state dinner in the state dining room is maybe 100 people.
Something like that. You can't get any more than a couple hundred in there, I know.
But, you know, it is an historic occasion, this African summit, David. First time that so many world leaders have been together here at one time. Right.
It is. It is a unique event, and it's an interesting event. One of the things that's interesting is all the different protesters. They're from so many different countries protesting so many different things. You can't keep them all straight.
No, when I was walking in the White House yesterday, there was a group of protesters in front of the Hay Adams Hotel. Again, I don't know who was staying there or what they were protesting, but probably every embassy, right, has its own protesters on its own cause.
Right. Yeah. No, I saw several. I think maybe the president of Guinea, maybe at the Hay Adams. I saw a lot of signs saying protesting something going on in Guinea. So couldn't figure out what it was, but they were upset about it.
Meanwhile, efforts to the questions about the Ebola virus dominated the briefing yesterday too. Where do you think we are on that in terms of any threat at all to the United States?
I really don't think so, Bill. I think the reason it's an unfortunate juxtaposition that Ebola virus resurfaced at a time when all these African leaders are coming to the United States, but it's not an airborne illness. It's only communicated through contact of bodily fluids.
Right.
I think it's something that could be easily contained. I'm just not an alarmist about it. I don't think it's that big. It's a big deal if you're in Africa, but I don't think it's necessarily a big deal here.
I thought Josh did a good job yesterday of pointing out that according to the CDC, there's no significant risk to Americans. He repeated that several times.
No.
The other juxtaposition, of course, was that the second American returning home yesterday.
Right. And they wanted people. Why are they bringing them back? Well, they're bringing them back to still study the disease for one thing, so that maybe they can help find some kind of cure. That's one of the reasons they wanted to bring them to the CDC in Atlanta. And there's some supposed outbreaks of Ebola. It just turns out people just happen to be very, very sick. So I just think it's kind of an overhyped story.
Now, we were there Friday for the daily briefing, and surprise, surprise, President Obama decided he was going to come in. He's been doing this more and more. Is this a sort of way of avoiding the full-scale news conference? What's going on?
I think it's like he is making himself available for more questions, 2 or 3 at a time, as he mentioned on Friday. He's also taking a couple of questions at photo ops, which he really doesn't like doing, but he's doing more of it. I think that's probably the Josh Earnest effect, and it's to get him more out there and to get his view of the situation out there on the public record more. I think it's a good thing. Today he's doing a news conference after the African Summit.
Yes.
I'm not sure that was on the original schedules way back when, but he's going to be taking questions later today. I don't know how many, but we're hearing from him more and more.
And that's going to be at the State Department, I believe, isn't it?
Right, exactly.
So normally before he takes a long break, I remember in the past, either Christmas time or in the summer, he'll have a full-fledged East Room news conference. Do you think we'll have that this week?
No, I don't. I'd be surprised if it was a full-fledged news conference. I think we may take a few questions either tomorrow or Friday because they'll have a couple meetings and there'll be opportunities for photo sprays. But no, I'm not looking for any full-blown news conference. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if he just went ahead and jetted out on vacation on Friday night.
Now, last Friday again when he was in the briefing room, I thought he was in an unusually feisty and funny mood, both. But speaking about immigration, you saw his frustration come out when they sue him for for doing executive orders one day, and then the next day they suggest that maybe he's got to solve this by executive order, right?
Well, very much so. Yeah, but I think what actually kind of enjoys talking about the lawsuit because he feels like it's a political winner for him. It wouldn't surprise me to hear him start talking about impeachment pretty soon for the same reason. So it is an unusual situation. He has to act on his own because Congress couldn't. And that's another thing we'll see in the next couple of days. We'll see some kind of announcement on shifting around money to address the border situation, to address that situation where Central Americans are coming over the border. Mm-hmm. We'll see some kind of news on that. Now, I don't know if President Obama will comment on it, if it'll come out of the Department of Homeland Security, but I am expecting some kind of action on that before he leaves from Martha's Vineyard.
Right. I mean, I know Dan Pfeiffer, I think, said something will happen before the end of the summer.
Right.
They can't wait too long for that, right?
There's two things here. There's the influx of Central American refugees, the spike in illegal immigration from that part of the world. So there's that. There's the immediate problem. Then there's the overall immigration reform, which hasn't been able to get much done. So what he's done, he's asked the Justice Department and the Department of Homeland Security what he can do to address what he sees as failures of the immigration system in general, and that's what's going to happen by the end of the summer. He'll get a series of recommendations from his aides, and then he'll make some kind of announcement, basically changing the immigration system by executive order, and I'm expecting that by the first week in September.
Yeah, and I think the president made it pretty clear he'd prefer the Congress act, but if they don't, as he said, he's got his phone and his pen, right?
Yeah.
All right.
And he's really talking that up. They say he's going to go big on immigration, so I think it's going to be that's going to be a huge story that we're going to see, I think, sometime before around September 5th.
All right. Well, David, watch out for all those motorcades. Don't get run over by it.
It takes me longer to get to the White House than it has in recent weeks, I can tell you that.
You got it. All right. See you a little bit later today. David Jackson at the White House for USA Today. Thanks, David. usatoday.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Kevin Cirilli here is a friend of Bill for the next hour from The Hill.
Congressman Walter Jones, Republican, by the way, just to make sure we put that out there. He is one of the 5 members of Congress who voted against suing the president.
Oh, good for him. Good for Walter.
He clarified his vote, by the way. He's against suing the president.
Oh, good. No.
But we should impeach him.
Oh, no.
According to Walter Jones. Yeah. He says suing and going through a lawsuit is a coward's way out. You should have to face this fight in Congress and impeach.
Oh, I got it. All right. So not good for Walter.
Not good for Walter.
No. All right. Coming up, hour number 2.
The Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Okay, are you ready to go here on a Wednesday morning? Hope so, because we're off and running. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., ready to bring you the news of the day wherever it's happening. We are there on top of it for you. We'll tell you all about it. You tell us what you think about it here on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TawkrTV. News happening everywhere here in Washington. The big Africa summit continues. Leaders of up to 50 African nations here in the capital. A historic occasion. Never been anything like this before. President Obama entertaining them all last night at the White House with a big dinner on the South Lawn and announcing yesterday that American businesses, that's what this is all about, have agreed to invest $14 billion on the African continent to help prop up and speed up the improving economies in those African nations. Meanwhile, good news out of the Middle East. Both parties, the ceasefire continues, and both parties, Israel and the Palestinian Authority, Hamas, have sent delegations to Egypt to try to come up with a permanent end to the conflict there in Gaza. Sad news out of Afghanistan, where a 2-star American general was shot and killed yesterday as he was visiting a training center for Afghan troops. One of the Afghan soldiers opened up fire with a machine gun from a nearby building as the highest-ranking American general to be killed since a general was killed in the plane that crashed into the Pentagon on September 11. Again, wherever it's happening, we'll bring the news to you. You tell us what it means to you by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
you wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
No matter what you see on cable television, the White House yesterday saying there is no significant risk for Americans with the Ebola virus. Hey, hello everybody. Good morning, good morning. Great to see you. Wednesday, August 6th. The Bill Press Show coming to you live all across this great land of ours and all around the planet. You can find us here in this country on your local progressive talk radio station. And you want to listen in and you don't have a progressive talk radio station, download the app, the TuneIn app, or go to iHeartRadio. And there we are with you every day. For those of you who prefer to watch, you've got Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TawkrTV. Whether you're watching or listening, we welcome you to the program this morning. We have our entire team in place, as always. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello, guys.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, hey, hey. Hello.
Alicia Cruz, standing by to take your calls. You can join the conversation, remember, at any time on any topic at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, keeping us looking good on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. And he is here so often that we consider him a member of the team. Right. Kevin Cirilli, senior staff reporter, or whatever title we're going to give you.
This reporter's fine.
Reporter, I meant to say. From from The Hill newspaper, for which I write a column every Tuesday, thehill.com. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, how are you?
What's going on?
Well, I saw a fox this morning on my run, and it was like pretty intense, but other than that...
Did it attack you?
No, I'm too fast, so I'm just kidding, no.
Oh, faster than a fox. Oh, nice. He runs fast.
Just set me up for it, Bill. No, I actually ran away, but no, yeah.
Who ran away?
No, me.
Did he follow you here?
No.
Because, that's not good.
Well, there's a trend, apparently, of
foxes are not that big.
Foxes,
we'll put it this way. I have never heard of a fox attacking a human.
Right. Well, the Washington Post is saying that there's these coy wolves now, which are taking over Washington, D.C. So I'm telling you that, there's a trend of animals in Washington. Where the wild things are. In Washington, yeah.
Yeah. You find them on K Street.
Exactly, yeah.
But otherwise, a good summer.
Otherwise, a good summer.
Thank you for coming in despite being attacked by a fox.
Ripped you to shreds.
Already this morning, right. So last night, a surprise appearance. Did you hear on the Colbert show, Stephen Colbert? Nobody ever knew that she was going to show up, but here she was again. Hillary Clinton, she is everywhere. Right. So Stephen Colbert tries to do a little one-upsmanship on the former Secretary of State.
I will have you know, madam, I once did an entire show with President Bill
Clinton.
I hate to break this to you, Stephen, but I've met him too.
That's cute.
No name dropping.
Yeah. Not so sure they talk a whole lot anymore, but they've met at least.
I saw him once or twice in the last year.
Yeah.
I can't wait for when she's done promoting the book and starts talking more about domestic policy issues. That's what I'm still looking forward to that. But I know, I'm just overly eager, so I'll wait until that happens because I don't cover foreign policy, So.
If she runs, of course.
Isn't she already running?
Yeah.
I can't tell you. I can't tell you how many times I get asked that question. Do you think Hillary's going to run?
My answer is she's already running, right?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't
of course? Yeah. My answer is, does the Pope wear a funny hat? So Kevin Cirilli here for the hour as a friend of Bill. We're going to be joined by Sarah Mimms at the half hour from the National Journal, and then in the next hour, Hadas Gold from Politico will be here to talk about the big media scare over the Ebola virus. But first, Peter with the big stories of the day.
This is the Full Court Press.
Yes, just a couple of other stories making news. It was 11 years ago that the movie School of Rock came out. It was directed by Richard Linklater, starring Jack Black. It's a comedy.
It's a great movie.
It's a very good movie. It's a good movie to watch with kids, and it's tolerable for a kid. It's funny for a kid's movie.
Heard about it.
Well, they're now turning this into a TV series. Nickelodeon has picked up 13 episodes of a School of Rock series. It's going to premiere next spring. There have been no cast announcements yet, so I'm not sure that Jack Black will be a part of this project. But it's coming to TV 11 years after the movie came out.
Wow.
Will they be using real child musicians?
That's a good question.
Because that's what the movie did. It was actual real virtuosos.
Real kids who played real music. The premise is that this sort of stoner loser guy poses as a substitute teacher so that he teaches all these music children how to play rock music. And so it's going to be now a series.
They're bringing back like a bunch of that. They brought back Boy Meets World. And so.
I'm just wondering why they waited so long.
Yeah.
So popular.
I could see why it would be a popular TV show, or why it would work on TV.
And then it'll be a launching pad for the next generation of pop stars who will all go crazy.
Yes, exactly.
The next American Idol.
In Chicago, there is a new law that increases penalties for people who abuse animals. It's a good law. It's a strong law. How did it get there? Well, it was pushed by a group of third graders. Brooke Martin, Claire Hackman, and Maddie Odell of Chicago read a book about two kids who rescue a puppy from a puppy mill. So they took it upon themselves to lobby their government and push for stronger penalties for puppy mills and other animal abuse. And you know what? It turned into House Bill 4410.
No.
And it is the law in Chicago. So,
getting things done.
Chicago politics.
Good for the dirty underbelly of Chicago politics.
The third grade class.
Even a couple of third graders could put it together.
Start them early. Yeah.
And mark it down, put it on your phone, save the date, September 9th.
All right, I got it.
September 9th.
I put it on my iPhone.
Put it on your iPhone and your iCal.
And
don't forget it, because September 9th is when the new iPhone will be announced.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
I need a new one. I
all
saw the
three
old
of
one.
us here, sitting here, holding our iPhones as we do a radio TV show.
I have the oldest one.
I'm ready for a new one.
I need a new one.
All right, well, here's how it's gone in the past. They're expected for them to announce it on September 9th, with the phones going on sale to the public September 19th. So none of this is confirmed by Apple, but if history is any indication, and if you look at the invitation that they put out for their big media event that they have in September, this is what's going to happen. So just get ready.
Aren't they coming out with a watch, too?
There are rumors of an iWatch. Okay. Although that's not what they're calling it, but like a wearable.
Yeah, that's the
wearable
NSA
technology. Yeah, that's right.
That's the NSA.
That's the NSA slogan. I watch. But expect a new iPhone September 9th.
All right. Thank you. Heard it here first. Thank you, Peter. So, Kevin, you have been one of the only reporters that I know of who has been seriously following and reporting regularly on this African summit. But this is a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
Why?
Well, you've got more than 50 heads of state from Africa in town for this huge 3-day conference, the Africa Summit, that is being sponsored by Bloomberg Philanthropies as well as the Department of Commerce. And you've also had every major top U.S. official speaking at this thing, from President Obama, Vice President Biden, Secretary of State John Kerry, former President Bill Clinton, have all been in the same place with these leaders, as well as the CEOs of virtually every major company, from MasterCard to IBM to Walmart, are all attending in the same room this conference. And really, the U.S. bill is kind of behind the ball a little bit, because China, since in the past decade, has had more than 5 major summits. And so really, I think...
Really?
Yeah,
on Africa?
Yeah, with African leaders. And so really, I think that the U.S. business community, as well as the administration officials, are viewing Africa as sort of this huge untapped market of potential growth that not only is good for Africa, but also here supporting jobs here at home.
Well, and I mean, the first thing, to be able to, these businesses are not going to invest in these countries unless they have a pretty stable government, right? I mean,
exactly.
That's a problem with a lot of these African countries.
Well, and I think one of the big themes and takeaways from this summit has been foreign policy to U.S. foreign policy to Africa in a couple of years ago, really up until now, has been about charity, has been about, giving to health foundations and to help, charity cases. But I think now what you're seeing is a really big shifting point, and it started a year ago when President Obama visited South Africa, and to declare that we're past that now, and now it's sort of a business. $17 billion of investments have been announced at this 3-day summit into Africa.
So it's governments. It's sort of government to government, economy to economy, as opposed to a paternalistic approach of just putting some money down there to help these. From a charitable
I think that's the next
point of view,
step.
right?
And I mean,
these are business investments.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've got General Electric just announcing like a $2.6 billion power plant as well. And so, but really we're in competition with China with this, because I think most of the early investments in Africa have been resources and have been minerals and extracting, resources from Africa. But now American businesses are, we talk about the iPhone, they want to make sure that, everyone has a cell phone, or, Walmart wants to build Walmarts in Africa. And that kind of changes the ecosystem and provides jobs for Africa. But, I mean, we can talk about sort of, trade agreements here in America, because you've got the export-import bank reauthorization battle occurring. And so I think the administration's making the case that it's good business for Africa, but it's also good business for here at home as well.
So is this sort of the new hot area on the planet to invest? I mean, it used to be, whether it was Europe or India or...
I think they want to make it that.
Latin America. Now it's Africa.
I think it's sort of the last untapped market, and I think that it's not anywhere near the size of the market of Latin America or India, but it could be. And I think that with so many changing political regimes and governments there, I think that businesses, like I said, I mean, when you've got the CEOs all attending a 3-day summit, it's a historic. It's the first time this has happened, and it's a historic.
Now, I have to say, I don't want to be like greedy here or whatever, but or just a pessimist. But it's $14 billion, $17 billion. I've heard both numbers.
Yeah.
But for the whole continent of Africa, that's like not a lot of money, is it? I mean, you know what I mean?
Well, when you look at GDP,
you could have one project
that
would cost $1 billion or $2 or $3 billion.
Well, you can't really even compare, and that's
you got 50 companies, countries, 50 countries, and
when
America's investing $14 billion.
Well, when you look at, you're right. I mean, you can't really compare the size. Remember, like during the World Cup, and people would compare like the GDPs of the different countries while they were playing. Well, nerds did that. Like,
I see. Yeah. It was a thing.
Yeah, it was a thing. But no, I mean, you really can't compare the size of somewhere like even South Africa, which has been perhaps the biggest success story on the continent. You really can't compare the size of their GDP to ours. I mean, it's just like astronomical difference. So you're right. But I do think that when you've got China making these investments, coming in and extracting these resources, but and then leaving, I think that there is a case to be made. Senator Coons, we met with him last week, because he's the chairman of the African Affairs Subcommittee, and he said like he was in with a head of state in Africa, and they started off the conversation by saying, I dealt with the Peace Corps when I was a teen, and now I want you to know, like, they haven't forgotten that. And so, yes, the U.S. policy in Africa has largely been charity, but it's evolving. But there's that foundation that I think the Chinese don't have.
Does this last beyond President Obama? Obviously, part of the significance of the summit is, as he mentioned last night in his toast, he stands there both as president of the United States and as the son of a man from Africa.
Right.
Do you think this is something that's going to endure in terms of the American attention to Africa and investments in Africa?
I think if you talk to anyone, I think it's already begun. I think it's a continuation of really the Bush administration. And I know a lot of people criticize the former President Bush, but he was really... his policy with African aid really laid the groundwork, and that's not really an opinion. I mean, across the board, from Senator Coons to Republicans and Democrats, have all praised the former president on his policy to Africa and how that laid a huge, important foundation going forward.
Right. If we'd paid more attention to Africa and less attention to Iraq and Afghanistan, we might have been better off. But at any rate, I'll just add that little editorial comment. Kevin Cirilli is here from The Hill, covering the African Summit. And last night, some very interesting primaries around the country. We'll get into those next with Kevin and with all of you. Don't forget, you can join the conversation at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all of the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role,
on a daily basis. I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 26 minutes after the hour here in our nation's capital, in our studio on Capitol Hill with Kevin Cirilli.
Hello.
From The Hill, author of The Hill's Overnight Finance Tip Sheet.
Yes.
Every night you write
Not
this?
during recess. So when Congress is back.
When Congress is
and we
in
talk
session.
about all of the money and politics and regulations going on about the Federal Reserve and Banking Committee and all of that as well.
One of the things that the president pointed out last night was he at the dinner and part of his toast, or part of his remarks, he said, I have to bring up the issue of the Ex-Im Bank.
Yes.
That's an important part of this equation, isn't it?
It is, so the Ex-Im Bank, it's up for reauthorization, and it has to, if it doesn't get reauthorized by Congress by September 30th, it shuts down. So mostly the Tea Party is opposing it as a form of crony capitalism and corporate welfare designed to prop up giant companies, many of which are in town this week.
Haven't Republicans always supported the Ex-Im Bank?
Yes, but it's become sort of an issue for the Tea Party. But the backstory is the leadership fight that's brewing. And I think that this is being used as a wedge issue between folks like House Speaker John Boehner and the chairman of the Financial Services Committee, Representative Jeb Hensarling, a Republican from Texas, who is a huge critic of the bank.
And so I guess when did the Tea Party take over this country? I mean, they're the minority, real small minority, and yet there's no immigration reform because of the Tea Party. They're going to shut the Ex-Im Bank is in trouble because of the freaking Tea Party.
Well, I think that what we're seeing now is the Tea Party asserting itself on a range of policy issues, beyond just sort of the punditry and Twitterverse. I think that you're seeing an impact on policy, like you mentioned, and it depends what you agree with, whether you support them or not. But I think you're seeing policy.
My point is, it's the tail wagging the dog. I mean, the Republican Party has always been the party of big business, right? And here, big business depends. I mean, a lot of them do in their investments overseas on the Ex-Im Bank and that funding. And now the Tea Party is trying to derail it.
Now you're seeing Democrats, like the Obama administration and former President Clinton also supporting it, making a play for business.
All right, we'll be right back.
Is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the
she's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, make it 33 minutes after the hour now on a Wednesday, August 6th. The Bill Press Show. That's me. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, our studio in Capitol Hill. Brought to you today by the International Association of Machinists. The good men and women of the Machinist Union, sharpening America's edge on the global economy. You bet. And for more information, you can visit about their good work under President Tom Buffenbarger. Visit their website at goiam.org. Kevin Cirilli from the Hill here the entire hour as a friend of Bill. Always good to have you on board, Kevin.
Thank you for having me.
And we are joined now by Sarah Mimms from the National Journal, staff correspondent for the National Journal. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, nice to be here.
Welcome to the party.
Thank you.
Kevin had a very traumatic experience early this morning.
I did not it was not traumatic.
He was chased by a fox while he was out for a little run
Was
this
it
morning.
was it the White House fox or the Capitol Hill fox?
Well, she's from the Washington Post reported this, so you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, this is a thing, Bill. There are more foxes.
I know we know about the White House fox. I haven't seen it, but it's been. I know someone who has.
Yeah. Well, no, it was not that. It was not that.
So I just want. Has your morning gone all right so far? You haven't had any big scares yet this morning? No?
Other than the fact that it's 7:30, I'm fine.
On the East Coast, at any rate, even earlier on the West Coast.
Absolutely.
So, right. You have been writing about. We've been talking about the African Summit, all that important stuff, but you've taken a trip back in political history and writing about this new documentary on Richard Nixon, which is sort of timely because yesterday was the 40th anniversary when they released the tape, the smoking gun tape, that showed that Nixon had, in fact, and he admitted, covered up the Watergate, tried to cover up the whole Watergate thing, break-in. And 4 days later, he resigned as president of the United States.
Yeah.
What's this new documentary tell us?
Well, Saturday is the 40th anniversary of the day he stepped down. Yeah. HBO put out a new documentary, came out on Monday. They're still replaying it. You can still find it. Essentially, it takes a look at a lot of the Nixon tapes that he secretly recorded. And what's really interesting about it is they call it Nixon by Nixon. So the idea is that there's no historical analysis. You don't see a lot of people getting up on camera and talking about it with sort of modern reflections. What you really hear is Nixon's voice, him talking with his advisors, and that is spliced in with a couple newsreels at the time. And what's really fascinating about it is you will see one newsreel saying the Nixon administration said this today, and it is followed immediately by Nixon telling his advisors completely the opposite thing. And what I came away from after watching it is just this idea that there's so much that can happen in a White House that we have absolutely no idea about. Obviously, Nixon was very famous for hating the press and for trying to manipulate the press. But it does make you wonder how much is happening in administrations after his and future administrations that the press will never know about or just get completely wrong.
Until 40 years later.
Right.
Or hundreds of years later.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, in some cases. I mean, Warren Harding's love letters we just read for the first time.
Oh, those were fantastic.
Right?
You know, and I always wonder, like, does you wonder if did he want to make this public, these tapes? Do we know that?
No, the idea was that
So
no one would ever know about them.
Isn't that interesting that a lot of these historical figures are like doing things that they think will never see the light of day, whether it's the love letters or these tapes, and then they get released. You never know anymore.
But the tapes really do tell the story of a Nixon who, as you pointed out, hated the media, but he also had he had a lot of enemies. I mean, right?
Oh, he had a very strong paranoia, absolutely. And that's what you see when you listen to these tapes is his enemies are not just the press. They're even some of his own advisors. They are women. They are Jews. He really hated a lot of people, but it was really because he was so afraid that they were somehow out to get them. And then, of course, everyone was. So maybe he was right. And
the idea, it's kind of what you were just alluding to, that he would agree and not agree. I mean, he's the one who set up this whole taping system, right?
Why did he do it?
Well, he wanted to keep sort of a historical record of what had happened within his administration. I don't think he ever intended that they would be released, especially so quickly after he died. But when you're listening to the tapes, what's really interesting about the documentary is they show a list of the people who knew that they were being recorded, and about half of his staff and advisors had no idea that they were being recorded in these tapes.
Wow.
So you get a lot of very off-the-cuff remarks from some folks.
Well, yeah, I don't think any of us would look so good if there were a recording of everything we said any time of day
Absolutely.
about any subject, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, yeah.
I hope we wouldn't look as bad as Nixon did, but
Yeah.
you
I'm
know,
always afraid when I come here,
we save every bit, every tape of every one of your appearances.
For
I just want you to
posterity,
know that.
watch out.
But I saw last night on CBS there was the Nixon Library released yesterday the tape of an interview that Nixon had done 10 years after leaving the White House.
Wow.
Had never been released before yesterday. I forget the reporter or a former staffer, I think, who interviewed him. And I was struck by a couple of things. One was Nixon was talking about leaving with a helicopter there. He had made the decision to resign even before this last tape went with the public knowledge that he had actually done the cover-up had come out. And then it took them that long to kind of put the whole thing together. And he was talking about getting on the helicopter, and so he described they had lifted off and they were kind of pulling away from the White House, and then he said, and Mrs. Nixon, and I heard Mrs. Nixon saying as she was looking out the window, "How sad, how sad." And my wife, Carol, turned to me and said, he called her Mrs. Nixon? No, he didn't say. And I heard Pat say.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was just sort of like, what does that say about their relationship, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Wow, I'm going to have to watch this documentary.
Mrs. Nixon. And the other thing I was reading actually in the New York Times about John Dean's just come out with this book where John Dean went through all the transcripts, right, of all of those tapes. I doubt, Sarah, that even you haven't done that, all of them.
No, not at this point.
Yeah.
Not at this point.
But, it's just, like mountains of paper that he went through, every single word.
Hours, yeah.
But Nixon was talking way back on the tape, way back to Haldeman and Ehrlichman, something about this John Dean and kind of what motivates this John, because he was a guy that blew the whistle right in front of the Congress. And Nixon says something like, he's got to be oversexed.
Yeah.
And so Nixon was obsessing with John Dean's sex life. I mean,
Wow.
that explains why he would, turn against him.
Yeah, he and Haldeman compared him to a tiger in the bedroom or something. It was
Wow.
Isn't that weird?
Wow.
very strange.
Yeah. Let's update our politics a little bit here. But it is the fascination with Richard Nixon. I always
Continues,
find it interesting because he was such an evil man, I think, but also historically interesting man.
Fascinating character, absolutely.
40 years. Wow. Yeah.
Have you been to the Nixon Library, by the way?
I have not.
Have you?
No, never have.
All right. Well, I have. Go to the Nixon Library and see how they try to repaint Nixon as a great president. Sort of, the Watergate is there, but it's not center stage.
Really?
Interesting.
Not center stage. No. So big primaries yesterday in the particularly for on the Republican side of the ledger.
Yes.
Yes.
It's
a couple of big Senate primaries. Kansas, Pat Roberts, no problem, huh?
No
Kevin?
problem. And I think there was I think this was a test for the Tea Party and the establishment. I think that's what everyone in Washington was looking at it for. So +1 for the establishment in that primary. He's okay.
Justin Wolf, the Tea Party candidate. Pat Roberts refused even to debate him. Milton Wolf, I'm sorry, yeah. Pat Robertson wouldn't even debate him, right? Just basically tried to ignore him and not recognize him.
Yeah, well, and Milton Wolf is a distant cousin of President Obama.
Yes,
second cousin.
yes.
Yeah, but he I don't even think he wants to admit that. But no, I mean they used that was a sort of like I think that they really hit him hard early and tried some character raised some character questions about him. He's a doctor and just sort of kind of really went after him tough, and it worked. It was a strategy that worked. But ever since the Eric Cantor loss, I mean, you've got to watch. If you go out too aggressively against them, then you're giving them more recognition, and you risk igniting the base. But it looks like he was.
Well, ever since the Bob Bennett loss in Utah, really, I mean,
Yeah.
Republicans have learned their lesson. I think about taking these Tea Party challenges seriously.
Right.
And moving in early on
Right.
to try to paint them as extreme as they are. The same story repeats itself in Tennessee.
Absolutely.
With incumbent Senator Lamar Alexander running against Joe Carr.
Joe Carr,
Congressman
correct.
Joe Carr, right?
Yeah.
In this case, Carr was supported by Sarah Palin and Laura Ingraham, who also supported Eric Cantor's opponent. This time they didn't do so well.
No, they certainly did not. Lamar Alexander followed very much that same strategy, hitting early, raising tons of money before he even had a primary challenger. Joe Carr had actually been running in a separate congressional race, dropped out of that race, and jumped into Lamar Alexander's race a little bit on the late end. He was never able to raise a lot of money. He never got a ton of recognition, and Lamar Alexander just crushed him.
Yeah. So the Tea Party learned a lesson here?
I mean, everyone's always like, is the Tea Party dead? Or what does this mean for the Tea Party? Are they making a comeback? I mean, a couple primaries last night. I think it was, I think that, look at last week with immigration, look at XM going forward. I think the Tea Party's still around and they're going to continue to make their views known.
Right, absolutely. They're still coming off of the victory over Eric Cantor. When a Republican loses to a Democrat, we don't say, is the Republican Party dead? The Tea Party movement, they have races where things work. They have races where they don't. I think they're still very much around.
And two where they did win last night in the House, one where they did, one where they didn't. In the House, Justin Amash, is
Amash.
that? Amash, right.
Out in Michigan, yeah, he won re-election pretty easily. And then, unfortunately, for Kerry Bentivolio, another Tea Partier in the House right now, he lost his primary last night.
Kerry Bentivolio, who will go down in history as the man who said that if he could introduce the resolution to impeach President Obama, it would be like a dream come true. Yeah.
Kerry Bentivolio, also a reindeer farmer and Santa Claus impersonator. He's a fascinating man. Really interested to see what he does after Congress.
Yeah. Or just for Christmas.
Absolutely.
There'll always be a need for Santa Claus impersonators and reindeer.
Exactly.
So
yeah,
he's got a life after Congress.
The holidays just around the corner.
Indeed. We're here with Sarah Mimms and Kevin Cirilli here on this Wednesday edition of the Bill Press Show, talking politics then and now. Join the conversation at 866-55-PRESS. Kerry Bentivolio will not be missed here in Washington, D.C. Certainly not by the White House. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Cost your
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go at 11 minutes before the top of the hour. Sarah Bryner from the Center for Responsive Politics joins us at the top of the next hour. And then we'll be joined by Hadas Gold from Politico to talk about the media hype on the Ebola virus. I mean, Kevin, we're here with Kevin Cirilli from The Hill and Sarah Mimms, from National Journal. Started to say Politico. Sorry about that.
No worries.
You've been hanging around this African summit, aren't you? A little worried about the Ebola virus?
No, but I thought it was interesting that they were doing like the O.J. Simpson car chase coverage for
the ambulance yesterday.
The ambulance of the patient who was going to the hospital. And I thought it was like, I'm a sucker for a car chase. Like I'll stop what I'm doing and watch it. But yeah, and then I was like, oh, it's the one person who has.
No, it was ridiculous, and I think all the cables went there, right?
I don't know what network it was, but I just thought, I was like, wow, this is really, they're really hyping this. So
don't you feel terrible for that person? This person with Ebola virus survives, fantastic, has to live the rest of their life as the Ebola patient. Everyone is going to be saying, "Oh, you were the one who had Ebola."
It was like swine flu a couple years ago. I remember that whole scare.
Sorry to say I had swine flu.
Well, and are you forever the girl who had swine flu? You never know.
Sarah, you have written about the Republic, in terms back to the political story of the day, that you have that some of the establishment Republicans are not too happy with what House Republicans are doing and sort of undermining their whole strategy to appear a little more reasonable, perhaps.
Yeah, well, I have to give credit to my two colleagues, Scott Bland and Alex Rorty, who also worked on this story. The idea being basically this Friday vote, the House stayed late, canceled some of their recess in order to pass an immigration bill that would basically prohibit President Obama from continuing to allow some of these dreamers into the country through the DACA
It would
program.
undo the Dreamer executive action that the executive action for the Dreamers that he signed some 6 months ago or so. Right,
correct. And what Republican pollsters in particular are saying, looking ahead to the 2016 election, is, guys, we need to attract more Hispanic voters. We need to attract more women. We need to reach out to these groups. And this is what you're doing in the House of Representatives on the last day before August recess. That's not helpful.
But I think on the flip side, right, and I'm sure you heard this too, is that, I think the other argument is, well, we've got to ignite the base because, and so I think it's like a strategy war for going forward between the Tea Party, who wants to ignite the base, and then also the establishment who wants to grow the tent. How this plays out.
But I mean, seriously, what more could they do for the base? I mean, they've done everything for the base, including talking about impeaching the president, including passing a resolution to sue the president of the United States. And at some point, they have to reach, I think Sarah was making this point, they have to reach beyond their base. They are never going to win the White House with that Tea Party base. Never, never, never. Lindsey Graham has said that.
Yeah.
Karl Rove has said that. And yet these idiots in the House just keep, pleasing the base and doing things to ignite, if you will, the base. Now, I agree. But remember, the Republican National Committee came out with its report
Oh,
in
yeah.
2012. Yep.
That said the same thing, that we want to
Exactly.
have any chance in 2016, we have to reach out to women, reach out to African Americans, reach out to Latinos, and they've just failed to get the message.
Yeah, and you have some Republicans who are running in difficult states this year. You look at Cory Gardner in Colorado. He's running for the Senate against Mark Udall. And if you look at his race, the Hispanic population in his state basically mirrors the national there, or it should by the time we get to 2016. And you see him, he voted for a very similar provision 2 years ago, and last Friday he voted against it. He's recognizing, and a number of other establishment Republicans who are in tough races in Hispanic districts, recognizing that we can't act this way.
I think they have proven to be, in many ways, their own worst, the House Republicans, their own worst enemy. Hey, Kevin, thanks. Great to have you here for the entire hour.
Thank you.
Be careful. Watch out for foxes on the way home. Hey, Sarah, great to see you, too. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
I'll be back and tell you what's on the president's schedule today on this Wednesday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
How about it? First 2 hours, pretty good, huh? Wait till you see hour number 3. Of course, you'll never see it on Free Speech TV. Too bad, too bad, too bad. But you video watchers can continue with us on our video stream at TawkrTV. Easy to find. YouTube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. And in the next hour, we're going to talk about all the media scare over Ebola with Hadas Gold from Politico. And take a look at this 40th anniversary of the release of the Nixon tapes that proved that Nixon covered up Watergate, and 4 days later he was out of the White House. Hour number 3 on TawkrTV coming up.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime. I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna. I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed. If I had 5 more extra years to live, I would be the boss of all the chipmunks. Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas. I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, for President Obama, it is African Summit today. He will be delivering remarks at their first session this morning at 10 o'clock. Then a group photo with the African leaders. Then he'll be speaking at their second session in the afternoon. And then the third session in the afternoon. And at 5 o'clock this afternoon, the president will be holding a news conference at the State Department with American reporters and African reporters, another first for President Obama. We'll be back with hour number 3.
This is the Bill Press Show.
West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions. So from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself. It will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look, your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It is the first African Business Summit in Washington, D.C., and for the first time, over 50 world leaders, prime ministers, and presidents at the White House at one time. Pretty exciting for a sleepy summer in Washington. Hello, everybody. What do you say? Wednesday, August 6th. Good to see you today. Welcome to the Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and we've got it covered wherever it's happening here in Washington or around the country or around the globe. We'll tell you all about it, and you tell us what it means to you at 866-55-PRESS. Entire team assembled here this morning. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Starting us off.
Hey there.
Hello, with Alicia Cruz. She's the one you talk to when you call at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, keeping us looking good on that video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKRTV. Anywhere in the planet. This is the African Summit.
That's right.
Right? But you know, if you're from Africa, you don't have to come to Washington to see the show. You can watch us there. Anywhere on the continent, just go to youtube.com/TawkrTV. I don't know. Have we had any people from African? I have to ask Cyprian because he
Cyprian
keeps
has to keep
track
track for us, on who's watching because we're worldwide.
I mean, Thailand and Finland.
We actually had Spain on Monday.
Went Spain.
A few, a lot of views there.
All right. Okay. All right.
We're worldwide, man.
You got it. We have a lot to talk about this morning, particularly in the political area. Want to catch up on all last night's primaries. And to help us do that, Sarah Bryner's here from the Center for Responsive Politics, a great organization whose specialty really is tracking the money in the political system, which is a full-time job. Hi, Sarah. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, too.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Happy to be here.
Before we start, we have our hero of the day is Noah Ritter. You all know Noah Ritter, right? I mean,
you will soon.
You will soon. He is probably the next anchor on the CBS Evening News. He's certainly in waiting. Noah, but he's got a little time to go because Noah Ritter is 5 years old. But he went out to the Wayne County Fair up in Pennsylvania a couple days ago, and a reporter caught up with him. You talk about enthusiasm, and you talk about a kid. He's so excited, but he can't decide whether he's more excited about the rides at the fair or being on television. Here's Noah Ritter.
What did you think about the ride?
It was great. And apparently, I've never been on live television before, but
sounds like me.
Apparently, sometimes I don't watch the news because I'm a kid, and apparently Grandpa just gives me the remote after we watch the Powerball.
Yeah.
Grandma says you can't watch the news. You have
Can I adopt this kid? I love this kid.
5 years old.
The best.
It's amazing. Apparently. That's his favorite word.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah.
And apparently he had a good time on some of the rides too.
Tell me about the ride. What did you think about the ride?
Well, it was great.
Why?
Because apparently you're spinning around. And apparently every time you get dizzy.
Yeah.
That's all you do is get dizzy.
Is it fun?
Yeah. And I've never ever been on live television. I never ever be on live television.
Excited?
Yeah, and apparently I only went down the super slide. When I went down the one, I was scared half to death. I just freak out.
Freak out.
It's so adorable.
Oh, that kid is the best.
Yeah, apparently I've never been on live television before.
One of my kids had this thing similar to the apparently, where he would start off every sentence by saying, "Second of all, I think we should go to," and like that was the first thing he said, but he just heard somebody say "second of all."
Oh, right.
So he would say, "Second of all, can we have burgers for dinner?" Second of all, I think it's time for me to go to bed.
Okay. What was first?
Apparently, yeah, there was no first. Apparently, I've never been on TV before.
All right. So Sarah Bryner here with us for the first half hour, and then Hadas Gold from Politico will be joining us to talk media news in the second half hour. But first, Peter always starts with the big headlines of the day.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of the stories making news. Congratulations to the world champion San Antonio Spurs of the NBA Basketball League. They hired a new assistant coach yesterday. Her name is Becky Hammond. She's a former star of the WNBA. She is the first female to have a full-time assistant coaching gig in the NBA. No female head coaches yet, but this certainly busts through.
Good for her, and
she'll be on the sidelines with the team while they're playing,
and good for them.
Call the shots.
Yep.
McDonald's has a new idea on how to build a new specialty burger. They are starting this in Australia. They are crowdsourcing their burger. What they're doing is they're going on Facebook and they're asking people, what would you want on a specialty burger? And then you get to vote. And then McDonald's will make that burger. So they're opening up to the people. You get to tell them instead of they get to tell you.
If I went to McDonald's, I would say I want a Five Guys
I don't think you can do that.
little bacon cheeseburger.
I don't think they'll allow you to actually substitute other...
I can't order from somebody else?
Yeah, no, I don't think that works. I'm sorry. And the Detroit Lions are onto a very interesting idea. Today, when they take the field for practice, you know, quarterbacks a lot of times wear red jerseys. It's a red shirt, which means they can't get tackled when they're practicing because they don't want them to get hurt. So what the quarterback's going to be wearing today for the Detroit Lions are going to be wearing green jerseys, like a highlighter light green. Why will they be wearing green jerseys? I'm glad you asked.
I know. I have no idea. I'm
glad you asked.
I could give a rat's ass, but I know
you will.
You're going to tell us anyway.
The jerseys have been recycled. They're made out of recycled plastic bottles. These green football jerseys, each one is made out of 21 recycled plastic bottles. And the quarterbacks are going to be wearing these things. There's a picture of them. We're going to tweet it out from our Twitter handle, @BP Show. You can follow us there. But, you know, they have a whole new initiative to help recycling in Detroit. So you're going to see the green jerseys made out of bottles.
Yeah. All right. Good. I bought some pens the other day, ballpoint pens made out of recycled bottles.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You could use them as straws, too, right?
Not sure. All right. Thank you, Peter. Yes, 13 minutes now after the hour. Sarah, before we get into the question of the big money, we see more and more of it in politics. Let's take a look at some of the important races last night, important primaries. We thought the primaries were all over in June. No, some of them go on into August. A couple of big Senate primaries. In Kansas, incumbent Pat Roberts
narrowly defeated, as the news will have you believe it. But he was challenged by the Tea Party, by a Tea Party candidate, but managed to pull through. And that's
Milton Wolfe was the guy's name?
Yes, who's a radiologist. There was some kind of nasty campaigning on both sides. At the end, the establishment came up for Roberts, and so it looks like he'll be back in Washington next fall. So
we were just talking in the last hour, too. I mean, Roberts and Lamar Alexander, whom we'll talk about in just a minute, both learned the lesson that you cannot ignore these Tea Party candidates, but you have to kind of move early to put them down, right?
Right. I think they'll look towards Eric Cantor. Ignore Cantor at your own peril, because even though, generally speaking, most of the mainstream incumbents have pulled through, including in Mississippi and Alabama, if you can't forget your district, and you can't forget this very vocal wing of the Republican Party that's really trying to make a play.
And was it the same story in Tennessee?
Well, it is. That's still to be determined because they have their primary on Thursday, which is unusual.
I got it. Okay.
And so we'll see if Alexander pulls through. He probably will, I would guess. I think that's what most of the forecasting is predicting. But he has a race.
But the candidate there, Joe Carr, has the support of Sarah Palin and the support of Laura Ingraham, right? Talk show host who supported Cantor's opponent. So is this a little more challenging?
I don't think Sarah Palin has supported a candidate who's won in a while, actually.
What?
My former governor, actually.
You're from Alaska?
Are you from Wasilla?
No.
Oh, okay.
A lot of my friends did go to high school with her children. So I think that, having her endorsement, it does give you some sort of leg up with perhaps the Tea Party voters, but you still have moderates, and then in some southern states, actually Democrats who can vote in these primaries and keep sort of the more moderate mainstream candidates alive.
The Tea Party up for a couple of big congressional races in Michigan.
Yes. Justin Amash, representing Grand Rapids, was under attack. And he had a pretty, money-wise, he had a pretty tight contest. He pulled through, but Carrie Bentivolio, representing a different region of the state, did lose. And that's the third incumbent so far this year. We talk a lot about incumbents losing, but actually, in fact, only 3 have lost so far.
But with Carrie Bentivolio, he lost to a Republican.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So we're not talking about a seat that the Democrats are likely to pick up.
Yeah.
But Carrie Bentivolio, who was pretty extreme. I mean, he is the guy who said, he was a first termer, wasn't he?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. That for him it would be a dream come true to introduce the impeachment resolution against President Obama. So.
Well, so I think perhaps there's some return to equilibrium in that region. There's another incumbent who's likely to lose soon in Tennessee, Scott Desjardins, who has a storied and scandalous past, who's being crushed in the money race.
Now, meanwhile, we learned yesterday that in Mississippi,
Chris McDaniel,
sorry. The challenger to Thad Cochran in the primary, who lost to Cochran in the primary, yesterday announced he was going to contest the results of that. It's been speculating whether he would eventually come around and endorse Thad Cochran. Last Friday, we had in the studio former governor of Mississippi, Ronnie Musgrove, so we were talking about it. And McDaniel dropped the other shoe yesterday and said he is not going to endorse. Not only is he not going to endorse, he is challenging the results of that primary, I guess demanding a recount or a new election, because he asserts that Thad Cochran paid African Americans to re-register or to vote in the Republican primary, which they can in Mississippi, and that was illegal. And
wow,
where's this go?
That's a good question. It really depends on the laws of the state. He could have a shot, but that was a primary runoff already.
That's right. That's right.
And it was
McDaniel forced Cochran into a runoff,
right?
And in the runoff is when Cochran did do a lot of campaigning in the African American community, and he beat Cochran. He beat McDaniel.
Assuming that he was not actually paying people to vote for him, which would be illegal, there's nothing wrong and there's nothing against the law about, wrong morally, right. I can't speak to that, but there's nothing against the law about asking people to cross party lines and vote in your primary if you have an open primary. And that a lot of southern states have that set up.
I know. What Governor Musgrove was pointing out is that if enough Tea Partiers stay away from that primary and don't vote, in the general, and don't vote in the general election, that Travis Childers, the Democrat, could actually have a chance in Mississippi. It's a long shot, but...
that would be pretty astonishing if that happened.
All right. Again, Sarah Bryner with us from the Center for Responsive Politics. Now, what the main thing that you track there at the center is the influence of big money in politics. Have we ever seen as much money in the political system as we do now?
Probably not. It's still a little bit early to speculate about how the 2014 cycle as a whole is going to play out, but just looking at outside spending, so super PACs and now actually nonprofit dark money groups, that money is definitely on the increase. And given the Supreme Court decision in April, which allows individual donors to give even more money to candidates, so you could give to more candidates and more parties, I think that will only enter more money into the system.
What does this phrase mean? You said super PAC dark money?
So super PACs...
I never heard this before. What is dark money?
Dark money is money spent by nonprofits and trade associations, groups that don't have to disclose who's giving to them. So the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, for example, can spend money on elections, but they don't have to say who's funding them.
They can run spots and everything?
Sure. Right. Yeah, and they certainly do. Americans for Prosperity, which has been connected with the Koch brothers, has run many ads so far this cycle. And there's other than through investigative journalism, there's really no way to track who's funding those media ads.
Well, the organization is, but you don't know who's giving them the money.
Right. In most cases. There's some tricky timing issues, but we do, they do have to say on the ad who's paying for it.
Yeah. How much money in the political system? Where is it coming from? And really, how much influence is it having? And could we be getting to the point where maybe there's so many ads and so much money that people just don't pay any attention anymore? Sarah Bryner here with us from the Center for Responsive Politics. Weigh in anytime you want at 866-55-PRESS, and we'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look! Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach
likes
your kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go at 26 minutes after the hour now on a Wednesday, August 6th. Hadas Gold from Politico joins us in the next half hour to talk about the media frenzy over the Ebola virus. Right now we're talking money in politics with Sarah Bryner from the Center for Responsive Politics. So how big are the Koch brothers still the biggest players?
Well, it depends on how you measure big, and I think that's a very wishy-washy answer.
But in terms of dollars, right?
It's very difficult to see their dollars because they contribute to politics through these nonprofit networks that don't have to disclose that money, and so we won't know how much money they're spending until years after the fact because of the way the IRS collects this information, and you just don't know what you can't see, and that's how they play in politics.
But they brag about the fact that they're going to spend, $100 million or $200 million in any given cycle, and that's what they spent. What they spent the last time?
We've tracked $300 million through a network of nonprofits in the last election cycle. So
$300 million.
That would make them the biggest
Koch brothers
co-actors. But then you have parties and candidates as well, and so. But I'd say among conservative players, they're certainly.
Well, the last report of yours that I remember seeing is that this so-called dark money or outside money actually now is bigger than what the parties are spending.
In some races, it depends on where you're looking.
Yeah.
But in Georgia, candidate spending outpaced outside spending. But in other cases, like North Carolina, outside spending is outpacing candidate spending,
Mm-hmm.
and that's new. And I expect to see that you'll start to see more presence from outside groups and less candidate spending as we move towards November.
I think you're right. And I think until we get a different Supreme Court, it's going to continue. That's going to be the trend.
That's what most people I talk to say, yeah.
Yeah, because John Roberts, I think, wants to do away with all limits on any campaign spending. Hey, Sarah, good to have you in the studio with us, and thank you for the Center does great work. It's opensecrets.org. Find out all you need to know about campaign spending. Thanks.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, how about it? It's 33 minutes after the hour. It's Wednesday, August 6th. We are live from our nation's capital and our studio in Capitol Hill, right here in the heart of the action, such as it is here, such as there is any action in Washington, D.C. in the summer. I mean, it's a good thing the African Summit's taking place. Otherwise, there'd be nobody in town at all. But we are brought to you also today by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. We all live better because of the good work of the men and women of the Teamsters Union under President Jim Hoffa. And you can find out more about their good work at teamster.org. Well, as you probably know, it's terrible. It's terrible. Thousands and thousands of people have died, and hospitals can't keep up with the rush to the emergency rooms, all because of the Ebola virus hitting this country. At least that's what you would believe if you were watching cable television the last couple of days. Hadas Gold is here from Politico to tell us the truth about the media hysteria and other media reports. Hello, Hadas. Nice to see you.
Hi, nice to see you as well.
You're having a good summer?
So far, so good.
So far? And what did you do to chase Dylan Byers out of town?
I don't think I chased him out of town. I think that the lure of California's sun and sand caused him to be attracted to it like a moth to light. So I don't think he could stay away.
Being a Californian, I understand that, of course. Yeah, Dylan...
I've heard reports that he's very tan now.
Is that has moved to Los Angeles, so maybe he'll be joining us. Although he's not an early morning person.
I'll say this: I've seen Dylan. I've seen Dylan hop on the whole G-chat and on Twitter way earlier than I would be if I was on the West Coast.
Really?
So he's up.
All right.
He's up right now, but he's up early.
All right. But it's good to see you. Thank you for coming in today.
Of course.
Before we start get into the Ebola hysteria, big news on the media corporate front, if you will. Rupert Murdoch had announced that he was going to buy Time Warner.
Right.
What happened?
He did not buy Time Warner. He made
Time Warner didn't even want to talk.
Time Warner was acting like this was the worst idea ever, and their CEO sent out a video to their entire staff saying, "We are not selling. We are adamant. We have a great product here. It's not a good idea to merge with them." This would have been one of the biggest mergers, I think, in media history. Would have been the merger of Time Warner and 21st Century Fox. CNN would have had to been spun off, and et cetera, et cetera. And then at first it was made seem as though Murdoch was not going to back down. This is Rupert Murdoch. He gets what he wants. He was going to make it happen. But then just yesterday, he sent a statement and actually a handwritten letter to the CEO of Time Warner saying that he was not going to be pursuing the offer any further. And everyone was kind of surprised. Everyone was expecting this to happen. They kind of saw it as an inevitable. And some people are looking at this in different ways. Some people say this, oh my God, Rupert Murdoch has been defeated. It's like the Almighty is no longer Almighty. Other people are saying he has something else up his sleeve. We don't know what it is yet. So the story is not over yet, even though it looks as though he says, okay, I give up. We're not going to go through with this. You guys don't even want to talk with us. He said that Time Warner execs didn't even want to entertain the idea. I don't think it's over. We're going to see something else come out of this. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be something.
Is there any limit or any end to what Rupert Murdoch can own? I mean, does he have to own every single radio station, television station, and newspaper on the planet?
He seems like one of those moguls who it's not so much maybe about money. It might not be so much about...
But,
right.
I mean, you look at the British press, right? He controls it. The Australian press, he controls it. The Fox Corporation, Fox Films, Hollywood, right? I mean, the Wall Street Journal. What else? Seriously.
Well, yeah, and with Time Warner, he would have had like HBO, which are huge money makers.
Yeah, right. So I agree with you, though. He has not gone away.
There's something else out there.
Absolutely. He's going to want them to come begging him to buy them now. Right. So, we'll watch how that goes. The other big story in the news is that the NSA is saying today, it looks like there is another leaker.
Right.
There's new stuff that has come out, and it didn't come from Edward Snowden.
Right. So not entirely sure if this person is from the NSA or where they're from. Federal officials are saying that there's now clearly a new leaker because The Intercept, which is the magazine that Glenn Greenwald's founded, Glenn Greenwald didn't write the piece, but there is a new report out yesterday that said that the terror database that the United States has grown exponentially in size, and that the vast majority of people on the list are not in any way connected to a terror group. Kind of like, hey, everybody, look, you might be on this terror list.
Right.
Watch out, even though you might have nothing to do with these people. So it was, and then federal officials confirmed to CNN that this information did in fact come from a new leaker who was not Edward Snowden, that the information was from after the time that Edward Snowden left for Russia.
Right.
So we've got a new person on our hands, and Glenn Greenwald hinted at this a few months ago. He said, Edward Snowden has inspired a lot of other people. Don't be surprised if more people start coming out with information for us.
And apparently, whoever this person or persons is, right, sought out Glenn Greenwald the same way that Edward Snowden did, because I guess they either tried or didn't trust some of the more mainstream media outlets, and so they knew how they could get the story out there.
Right. I mean, Glenn Greenwald has proven himself as someone who's very anti these policies, who's proven himself to be somebody who isn't afraid also to stand up for these. He now is working more or less on his own. I mean, he's backed by Piero Midyar, but he's running his own news organization. He lives in Brazil. He has kind of no fear. I'm sure he has fear of the United States authorities tracking him down, but he's been back to the United States already. I think anybody who is looking to leak sensitive information like this, trust him. Also, he now has the platform. Like anything he says, people pay attention to now. So they know that whatever they've got, if they want it to become widespread and well-known, they should go to Glenn Greenwald.
Isn't it fascinating, though, that it just sort of shows the genie is out of the bottle, right? I mean, the NSA, no matter how they try to crack down, and no matter how hard this administration tries to crack down on whistleblowers,
right?
And they've pursued more cases of journalists under the RICO, I guess. What statute is it? I mean, Eric Holder has really gone after leakers and whistleblowers. I forget under which statute, but at any rate, no matter how hard they try, people who think the government is doing something wrong, particularly now, they're going to talk and they're going to find a source.
Right. And it's a very fine line because, you know, you can kind of see both sides. Like on one side, we do want to see this information out, especially if it's, you know, invading into our personal privacy, et cetera. But what's to stop also some guy who thinks that maybe when some military operation is a bad idea to go to somebody who might not be from the most reputable news organization, doesn't go through the same processes that, say, The Guardian or the New York Times or the Washington Post does, and like say we should probably be careful about, let's say, publicizing soldiers' names or something like that. So who's to say that this another person is going to go to some random blogger who, because we all have a platform now, is going to go out and publicize it. So I think it's really interesting to see how the government is going to balance this out, because they say that they're in favor of whistleblowers, but we've even seen with all the VA stuff that some of these whistleblowers are being punished and they're being sent to the base, like punished as in their offices are being moved to the basement. They're turned into librarians. There's one woman, I think it was in the Times recently or the Washington Post, she went from chief spokesperson at the Phoenix VA down to being like assistant librarian in the basement after she was a whistleblower.
Sucks.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I was at the White House yesterday at the briefing, and a question came up about the Ebola virus. Josh Earnest said that Americans have nothing to fear from the Ebola virus. According to the CDC, here's Press Secretary Josh Earnest.
The experts at the CDC have assessed that there is no significant risk posed to Americans here in this country by this latest outbreak of Ebola.
No significant risk. I have to say, Hadas, that is not the impression I would have if I were watching cable news the last 2 days.
No, they had the helicopter following the ambulance in Georgia. You know, it was almost like OJ all over again. But
it was the white Bronco. This was the white ambulance.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
They're hyping it up. You know, the media likes to get obsessed over whatever new thing they can get obsessed over, as small as it might be. And especially for somebody like CNN, when they choose a story, that's all they're going to do. And it's true that the risk, it's almost the same way as we cover plane crashes, right? Statistically, the chance of you or I either getting infected with Ebola or being on an airplane that gets shot down over Ukraine is very, very unlikely. We are more likely to walk outside, get mugged, and hit by a car at the same time. So it's super unlikely, but these events are just so fascinating, and especially with the Ebola thing, the visuals. Normally when you have like a sick person, it's like, okay, they're in a hospital. With Ebola, the visuals are people in these crazy like spacesuits and all these precautions being put into, and it's almost like it's almost like a movie. It reminds me of like the zombie movies that we all love to watch. So it makes for great television, and this is something that they can see how it immediately affects them.
But isn't there a responsibility like to tell the truth? I mean, God forbid, right? I mean, because the net impact or effect of it is to scare the hell out of the American people.
Oh, yeah.
For something that they don't really have to be scared about.
Like one of the headlines yesterday literally said panic over
right.
Ebola in the United States.
Fox News,
and the only panic I've seen was on TV.
Panic over Ebola.
Right.
Why and where is the panic taking place? It's not taking place.
Right.
They're trying to make it. They want people to panic.
The cable news wants fireworks. I don't think we can look at cable news necessarily as like a trustworthy place to say what level our reaction should be to something. Because if we followed everything cable news we'd be getting calls like from my grandmother who tells me that Barack Obama doesn't like Israel because his middle name is Hussein and he has a Muslim father and he's all these other things.
And he was born in Kenya.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, did you see Chris Jansen yesterday on accident saying that Obama was from Kenya?
No, did she really? Oh,
it was she meant to say his father is from Kenya, and that's why he has a connection to it. But of course, everybody was
when
like,
I see her today, I'll give her a hard time.
I felt really bad. Just an unfortunate slip, but
the media frenzy over Ebola and other media stories here with Hadas Gold from Politico. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Racing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 12 minutes before the top of the hour, Wednesday, August 6th, in studio with us from Politico, media reporter Hadas Gold. We need to give you a promotion here. You know, I mean, with Dylan out of town.
Dylan, I'm looking right in the camera. Dylan, are you listening?
Media chief, right? Chief media reporter or something. And then in paren on the East Coast. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Nice to have you here. So I want to ask you, you mentioned CNN a little earlier about the ambulance chasing yesterday, because they were into this. This is the serious news channel that I used to work for. And they're doing the OJ ambulance chase because of this woman, the nurse who was brought here from West Africa yesterday. And so under the new leadership, how is CNN doing? Are they were number one when I worked for them. Now they're number 3. Are they making any inroads into MSNBC or
I mean,
Fox?
they do sometimes. I mean, MSNBC, their ratings are not particularly good. In primetime, it seems like Rachel Maddow is the only one who can really bring in any viewers. When you got shows like Alex Wagner and Cycle and Ronan Farrow, some of them just do some of the some very, very sad ratings.
What is happening with Ronan Farrow's show? It's
the whole afternoon on MSNBC is
I mean the afternoon is kind of a mess, but Ronan Farrow's show in particular drives me absolutely up a wall because I don't know how it exists on television.
He is a child prodigy and has famous parents and is pretty. And I guess that helps.
Lock him in.
Yeah, I mean, and he's very intelligent.
don't worry, we know he tells us all the time.
But yeah, he has an interesting show. But they're gonna let him try it out for a year, and then we'll see where it goes. I mean, MSNBC needs to figure something out with their afternoons because I don't think anybody takes their afternoons seriously. We saw what happened when the Cycle was doing the breaking news with the Ukraine plane crash, and they got pranked by that Howard Stern fan. Not to say that it's the host's fault, but I think it's just like the whole culture of the afternoon.
But on that particular thing, I think it really showed the weakness of what they have because on that one particular call, she didn't even realize what was happening. She kept going even after the prank had happened, whereas most people have been trained. If you've been on the air and you hear someone yell Baba Booey or whatever, you just hang up and you move on. Where she kept trying to talk to the guy. And so it just shows sort of their weakness as broadcasters, I think.
Yeah. I mean, and then CNN, so here's the thing. CNN, whenever there's breaking news, like the war in Gaza, like the plane crash, they still do very, very well. They still have the resources. They still have the really great reporting and the really great reporters who could do a very good job. But the problem is that there's not always breaking news. It seems like the last 2 weeks there's been nonstop news, so they've been able to reap the benefits of world events. But then when you've got...
That's their strength.
That's definitely their strength.
And by the way, Wolf Blitzer has been doing an incredible job, I think, from the Middle East.
Yeah, between Wolf and Jake and all these people, they do have very strong reporters. And then the problem is that when there's not this crazy breaking news, how do they still get the ratings? Now they're trying to balance it out with these scripted shows. Anthony Bourdain, who I absolutely love, he's doing really well for them. The ratings from that are...
He's their number 1 rated show, isn't he? I think.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it makes sense, but it's kind of unusual to have the number 1 show for a cable news network, something we're used to more being, like an Anchor or Bill O'Reilly or something like that, to be a scripted, travel documentary show. And that's, I think that's their path to survival. They say they don't want to become either the liberal network or the conservative network, and so they need to find this middle. And then the thing with the Ebola thing is that if you go talk to some of my friends from high school in Arizona, they probably could kind of care less about what's going on in Gaza and you know, if Ukraine and Russia are going to go into an all-out war. But something like someone with a really deadly, scary virus coming to the United States, even if it's 6 states away from them, that feels a lot closer to home. That feels like something that's more tangible to a viewer than, say, these other world events. And so they're trying to bring that in because, you know, if somebody hears like that there's some kind of crazy deadly virus going on, then maybe they'll turn on CNN and try to figure out if they actually have to be worried about it, which if you watch CNN, then you should probably stay at home.
I guess the moral of the story is, don't believe, not that you can't believe anything, but don't believe everything you see or hear on cable news, right?
Yeah, never believe it.
Check out Politico instead and Hadas Gold.
Exactly.
Hey, Hadas, thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And I'll be back wrap things up with today's parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
And on this Wednesday, August 6th, my parting shot for today, just wrapping up what we've been talking a lot about here with Hadas Gold. Watching cable news, you might think 1,000 people in the United States yesterday alone had died from the Ebola virus. It's certainly, of course, not the case. But you never know that watching cable TV. You could watch CNN, MSNBC, or Fox all day long and never learn the truth about the Ebola virus, which is this. There are no known cases outside of 4 countries in Western Africa. Only 2 Americans have the virus, both of them in isolation in a hospital in Atlanta, brought from West Africa. The only way to get the virus is by physical contact with someone who has the disease or get bitten by an insect not found in the United States. And according to the CDC, there is 0 risk to citizens of the United States of getting the virus. In other words, no matter what you see or hear on cable news, there is no panic and no need for panic. That's my parting shot for today, folks. Wednesday, go out and have a great one, and then we'll be looking for you right back here again tomorrow on the Bill Press Show. Have a good one, and we'll see you then.
This is the Bill Press Show.